Criminal Justice Commission is called to order.
Okay. Commissioner Vieira?
Present.
Commissioner Greer?
Present.
Commissioner Brown?
Present.
Vice Chairman Christ?
Present.
Chairman Augusta?
Present.
And Johnson is absent. He will not be here.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call upon the City Manager, Mr. Mark Bozigian, for an introduction.
I could go on forever about Lee, but I won't. One of the first things Mayor Paris talked to me about when he became mayor was holding other agencies more accountable. That's something that we really need to do. And I'm very happy that we were able to put it in the budget and the council put a priority on approving a position that we can have someone full-time that can look at the services the county, the state, and the federal government provides us in terms of public safety. But it's not just that. You have to get the right people. Okay? We have the right person in Shelley Henson for Neighborhood Watch. Neighborhood Watch and Business Watch, when she started, there was 6, I think, maybe 10. Should have went with 6. Well, there was 10. We now have 180 neighborhood watches. That's because of her and Craig Steffen's efforts. Okay? We hired Jim Cobalt. We sort of call him the mad professor because he comes in there, he works on things and stuff. But he's done an amazing job of putting us ahead of every contract city. And again, it's the right person. In Lee DeRica, we absolutely have the right person. I've known Lee most of my life. Lee was a great football player, one of the meanest that's ever been come out of this valley, a long time ago. He is on the high school district board. He's a great board member. But more than that, Lee knows the county inside now. He was a deputy. He's worked for the CDC, which in charge of the Section 8. He works with HUD. He knows those things. But even more important with that, he loves his community. He has a passion for this community. And every day that I've known Lee, he is a cheerleader for this community and wants to make it better and will not stand for those in this community who are trying to do harm. He's the right person for this job. We're working on some goals for him right now. He's already proven his worth his first week and some of the ideas he had. And I am genuinely excited as our staff to work with him to make him part of the team with Shelley, with Jim, with Jason, with myself on public safety at the city side. And I know that the captain feels the same way because he was provided one of the strongest references for Lee of any of the folks that we checked. With that, I'd like to give you an opportunity.
Yeah, okay. There's some pressure, huh? It's kind of fun now. Dave and I get to switch roles now. Usually with Dave and I have a great working relationship. We grew up together, and, I know all you guys. So I will tell you, the one thing that Mark talks about with community, this community is hugely valuable to me. I mean, Dave and I were just talking about this the other day, and the legacy of this community that's been passed down to now us. I grew up with Dennis too as well, and I worked with Dennis's dad for years, and everyone in this community has buy-in and our stakeholders here. My family's still here. Everyone I love and care for is here, and I take it a personal responsibility to do everything I can to better the community as it is. So for me, this is a great opportunity to do a lot of things that I've been wanting to do and thinking about doing. Poor Mark have to have lunch with me while I bounce 1,000 things off of him, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys and putting forth this effort to enhance the great things that are already going on. Okay, so just to keep the momentum going and to keep working towards the goals that are set forth through the council and through the commission. All right, so thank you, and please call me with any issue that comes forward or any task that you want me to undertake, and I'm a good problem solver.
Can you make sure we have your personal contacts?
I will make sure you have all that prior to the end of the meeting. Don't give it to Axel, though.
The other thing, those lunches that Lee had where he bounced 1,000 ideas off me, it's really cool now because I get to say, okay, make it happen.
Yeah, there you go. Now the pressure's on. But that's
a cool
good.
relationship.
I'm really having a good time with it already. So, all right, thank you.
Welcome. Public business from the floor on agendized items. I'd call upon the recording secretary to read the admonition.
We request any person who would like to address the Criminal Justice Commission on agendized matters to complete a speaker card. You will find speaker cards on the back table of the council chambers. Additionally, we respectfully request that you fill out the cards completely and print as clearly as possible so that if necessary, the commission or city staff will be able to contact you either by phone or by mail. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. When you approach the podium, please notice there are 3 lights. The green light comes on when you begin, the yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light will come on when your 3 minutes are up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. Following this procedure will allow for a smooth and timely process for the commission meeting, and we appreciate your cooperation. Thank you.
We'll next move to the consent calendar. Consent calendar item number 1 is approval of the minutes of the August 12th, 2009 meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for August 12th, 2009.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
We'll move next to the new business items, and new business item number 1 is the parolee task force. I call upon Captain Axel Anderson and the city manager, Mr. Mark Bozian.
Yeah, really, at this point, there's no real new business. We've had a news conference on putting together our new parolee task force. They have been deployed. They're just starting their new duties. So far, I don't believe they've been out involved in any active operations yet, but it takes some planning. These can be dangerous, so we're going through the planning process right now, and I'd be happy during the next meeting or as soon as possible to report their progress once they're actually out and active and contacting parolees.
Captain, do we know when the timeline or what the timeline is for the release of parolees? Has that been?
You know, I have a meeting set up with the local parolee supervisor or parole board supervisor, and I'll probably get better information at that time because they're bouncing back and forth. There's basically some political stuff going on up in Sacramento over this whole thing, but they are still. CDC is still taking a stand that they've got to get rid of at least 27,000 inmates over the next 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
And the State Assembly is, I believe, still as of now, is still balking at that. The Senate passed something, the State Assembly is working, and the governor has signaled his intention to approve that if it gets to his desk. So really, the Assembly is our friend at this point.
And we're preparing for the onslaught, it appears. Yeah.
Yes.
Next, move on to new business item number 2, Eye in the Sky. Call upon Mr. Mark Bozian.
Thank you, members of the Commission. This is really a very exciting program. I think there's some fact and fiction with it, so what I'd like to do is just take a minute or two to bring you up to speed what it is, where we're at, and then the role the critical role the Criminal Justice Commission can play in making this a reality. First, the concept. This concept, and there's a lot of times when there's team efforts in coming up with something. This is not one of them. This was a concept that Mayor Paris came up from the get-go, I think his first day. He was working with Dick Rattan and Bert Rattan, and it's a great idea, quite honestly. It's a quantum leap in in surveillance. The simple concept is, take London, the city of London, for example, one of the most visible cities in the world in terms of surveillance everywhere for terrorism, etc., and you all read about that. They have thousands of cameras. The city of London is much smaller geographically, my understanding, than the city of Lancaster. The city of Lancaster could get coverage, like London, with one camera in an aerial platform. The technology exists. It's used right now by the federal government by agencies we probably don't even know exist, but we know it's being used. So the technology is there. The trick is, how do you get it to go towards local law enforcement and provide public safety benefit? We've been working with Dick Rattan, who's come up with a concept, and we actually did a demonstration flight, the mayor, myself, Captain Anderson, some Sheriff's Department personnel, to prove that it works. And it's truly amazing. We saw an accident that happened within 15 seconds. This camera was on it, and it could make out the cars, the people. It can't quite read license plates, but it's pretty close. They put it on surveillance mode for night vision, and you could see everything at night. So it works. So this is one where it's not developing something, it already exists. It's how do we put it in practice? And there are two things there. One is the operational, and quite honestly, I don't often say that because I usually think money's the most important. In this case, it's operational. Operational is how would the Sheriff's Department, in our case, use it? Now, it has applications for other law enforcement and other things. That's what we've begun to talk to the Sheriff's Department about, and that's where we think we need you guys in that role to help. There has to be protocol, obviously, just like there is today. They have an Aero Bureau, which is helicopters. But imagine, if you will, if you get a report, bank robbery in progress. Right now what they'd have to do is, they couldn't get a helicopter to go up that quickly, probably. You'd send people, you'd gather information, you'd do that. If you're surveilling a location, you'd have several people doing it. With this, you wouldn't have any of that. Bank robbery in progress, you would literally, on a screen, put the intersection or the bank in, click, and in 5 to 10 seconds you would be on that. You would see what it is. Then tactically you could determine what your response is going to be. So it's for patrol, crime prevention, etc. But that takes a implementation. It takes how do we get the information from the sky to the watch commander, the watch sergeant. Who controls the camera? Because just like anything else that they do, there's restrictions on. There's restrictions on property you can go in. There's restrictions on how you can view properties. So there's protocols on. It's only in public places, etc. And then from there, the dispatch. Is it dispatched verbally? Is it dispatched? Do people have things in their car, etc.? So that's the area that we'd like the Criminal Justice Commission to work in and help us work with the Sheriff's Department on that part of it. The second part, which is one of the most important in every project, is how do you fund the thing? Okay, it may be anywhere between 3 and whatever to put together, and I don't know the exact numbers, but that's more than any one city would put this in. But there's a private entity. Government should always work with private entities. It's a business opportunity for a subscription service that cities multiply could get together and have surveillance and such. So we're working in terms of putting private sector partners together to see if there's a business opportunity in this, which we believe there is, not just for municipal enforcement, but other aspects as well, too. Ports, large facilities need surveillance. This would give them that capability, too. So the possibilities are endless. We're at the beginning stage of it. We'd like to move quickly on it. The operational stuff, what I would suggest is I would set up a meeting where 1 or 2 of the commissioners could attend with the Sheriff's Department. I forget the gentleman's name that we met with, the commander, Bob Osborne, and we could just start talking about the importance to the community and honestly hear what the issues would be, and then we'll work through those. And I think the criminal justice is uniquely suited to do that. The funding side, we're working that side as well. It is exciting. It's groundbreaking. We believe sincerely that it will make a huge difference in this community. And quite honestly, if it's picked up, which it should be, it's a quantum leap in surveillance for law enforcement. You can tell we're very excited about it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. But we're at the very beginning of something special, I believe.
I just have one question. You said you were working on the funding side still. Just rough idea, any idea at all what kind of costs you're talking about on an annual basis?
Well, there's 2 things. To get the thing up and running would be a private company. That's going to be several million. I don't know the million. On a subscription basis, if a deputy costs you X amount per hour, I don't exactly know the hour. I think it's $80 to $100 an hour with fully burdened. From a city's perspective, we'd like to pay something similar. From a private sector investment, they want to recoup their cost, and that's where the business model comes in. We have 2 cities next to each other, Palmdale and Lancaster. Maybe we go in and split the cost. You're down in the LA Basin, you have 5 cities that are out of 1 station. Maybe you do that. That's the business model part. But it'd have to be something affordable. It would be scalable on an hourly basis. And you wouldn't put it up initially 24/7. You put it at your peak times and/or peak days to see it. Also, what we would do, because we're the research and development station for LA County Sheriff's Department, we would get it piloted and tested here first. And good negotiators that we are, we'd get a very favorable rate negotiated for allowing them to pilot it here.
Thank you.
Does that have to do with Jason?
Jason did actually, and I should have stepped in yesterday because I tried to negotiate it and we never got off 0 and $1 million. So Jason did a very good job negotiating that signal. He got $400,000 that I got.
Is the plan that this would be like a fixed-wing aircraft?
That's the plan right now, yes. You don't. The original thought was you'd have it unmanned, but there's a whole bunch of issues with unmanned. You really don't need unmanned because it's unlikely that it's a target for to be shot down. So it'd be fixed-wing aircraft. That's one of the beauties of it. It could be done with existing technology on a Cessna, if you will, or something along that line.
And currently, my understanding is the Sheriff's Department has, or the city contracts with the Sheriff's Department for a helicopter for so many hours a month. Is that?
It's actually built into the price. When we contract for a deputy, like a deputy costs us $213,000 annually a year. Deputy doesn't make that. Different services are rolled into that. Aero Bureau, Homicide Bureau, SEB, I think, all of those things too. So it's a component, but not discrete in that.
How many hours on the average a year does the helicopter dedicated to Lancaster?
Axel, do you know the answer to that?
It varies. Aero Bureau right now, because of budget problems, really they don't have the birds up that they would like to have to get adequate coverage. But we're getting probably 3 to 4 day a week, probably at least 12 hours a day coverage out here in the valley right now, the way it stands.
Where the helicopter is based here for 12 hours a day?
It's based, but its span of responsibility is all the way from Santa Clarita out here to Palmdale and Lancaster. So, yeah, its responsibility is primarily out here, but it's a huge area that it covers.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, of the number of calls that you need a helicopter, what percentage approximately of the time is a helicopter available to respond to the kinds of calls that you need a helicopter for?
You know, it's almost impossible to say the percentage of time because it's bouncing back and forth between the 3 cities, and it usually is best used for priority calls such as robberies or car thefts now or burglaries. We also very, very heavily use an air unit when we get involved in vehicle pursuits, foot pursuits, things like that, so that we have eyes up in the air to help us out tactically with those kind of operations. But because it's divided up in such a huge area, if I had to give you a percentage, I'd say it's probably available for, when it's up and when it's functioning, probably 50% of our priority type operations.
And that's a couple of days a week?
Yes.
50% of the
2 to 3 days a week, yes.
Okay. Just trying to get an understanding of what kind of coverage you have now and what it's costing the city to, for that coverage.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what it's costing the city as far as coverage, but I can tell you this. We wish we had better coverage. In fact, I think all of our contract cities and county areas that the Sheriff's Department covers wishes we had better aero coverage right now because it's so important to all of our critical operations. The problem is Aero Bureau right now just is not funded to really get that done.
Sure.
Chairman Augusta, towards that, one of the benefits of this kind of system is that a helicopter is about the most expensive way you could put something up in the air, and a fixed-wing plane like a Cessna is one of the least expensive you can put. Right. And while it might start out as Lancaster as the pilot, we believe that ultimately the Sheriff's Department would look at transitioning its Aero Bureau to something like this, which would be less expensive and provide greater coverage simply because it's much higher in the air and has a wider field of vision. And to get on an event, like a helicopter has to go down to look at something, this, you push a button and the camera will focus it down. It's truly remarkable technology. So we would expect that it might change the Aero Bureau's operations over time if it goes to other contract cities.
So if I understand this is satellite information that currently exists?
It's not satellite information, it's a camera system that's used by some federal agencies, Homeland Security, et cetera, that absolutely does exist.
And so what you're really talking about is that municipality, the area is already then under surveillance. It's just that it's the opportunity for law enforcement to be able to rent that surveillance for their own purposes. Am I understanding this?
Absolutely. It would be a service that would be provided. I mean, you could do it two ways. It could be a private service that's provided by a private company. You could have a municipal law enforcement agency like the Sheriff's Department, but it would have to be someone that big to afford to maintain it and keep it up, could provide it as a public service. There's two models. We believe...
But the pictures are currently, at this moment, being taken continuously.
If this system was up, yes. In certain areas, absolutely. Probably coastlines, et cetera.
I think there's some confusion here. My understanding is that what you're proposing is a Cessna type fixed wing aircraft.
Yes.
With a camera fixed to the airplane.
It's a camera and a gimbal. Yes.
That allows the pilot to fly over any area over Lancaster and to utilize the camera to focus on.
Close. The beauty of it, the pilot has really no control. The pilot just flies.
Okay.
The control all rests with the operator on the ground.
Okay. Yeah. I think what Dr. Brown was referring to was satellite technology.
Yeah, no, I misunderstood. That's not it.
So the majority of this is reactive?
It could actually be proactive as well, too. For example, a surveillance. If you have a car stolen out of some location every day at a certain hour, you just watch that and you can see it. Also, one of the beauties of this system is it can go back in time. If you have a report on Thursday that on Tuesday something happened, you just call it back up. It's recorded for 2 months, 3 months, whatever, and you just go back and you can look at that location, what happened Tuesday, that time span. Example, you may not be able to read a license plate, but you could see a Ford Bronco leaving that location, compare it to 3 other similar cases, and always see the same Ford Bronco. Then you have workable information.
You know, we consider this, there are some possibilities for proactivity on this too. For instance, you know, we have a terrible problem, and we've talked about it before, with large parties of young people around the Lancaster area. This technology would easily pick that up, probably before neighbors would even call. And a lot of times neighbors don't call about those things because they're intimidated. And this would give us an opportunity to see large gatherings, gang activity in various areas. So, you know, I look at it as an opportunity also to kind of supplement our patrol function, as well as being able to direct it to specific problems when we get calls, you know, critical calls like robberies and burglaries and things like that. So I think it would supplement both aspects.
While this fixed wing is up doing the perimeter, is it necessary to have the operator always on the ground or wherever it may be to operate that camera? Or
No, not at all. It'd be similar to if it's on a screen and whenever you need it, you'd click to what you need. That's the beauty of it. The pilot flies, the camera does what it does, and the operator only needs to access it when there's something, an operation or a patrol function.
So there would be instances then where there would be flying and there wouldn't necessarily be an individual on the ground assigned to that.
That's exactly correct. Now, you can envision something like when you have an operations sergeant or watch commander that's always there and has pieces of information coming in, whether that be radio traffic, calls, etc. This is another piece of information available to that individual who's in charge of that shift and the operations of the patrol and everything during that. Is it an 8-hour period, Axel? Yeah. So it's another piece of information available to that individual.
And do we get any funding for it, being a research and development station?
We haven't had a commitment from the department for funding for it right now, but I can say this, I've had several long conversations with Commander Bob Osborne, who's in charge of basically the department's research and development efforts, and he's very interested in this. He does seem to think that there are several different companies that offer this type of technology, these types of cameras, and he's currently kind of looking into seeing, you know, who's going to offer the best deal and who has to some extent or another the best system for our use.
Which is appropriate for what the Sheriff's Department would do, is investigate all things, but to put something like this together, everyone brings something to the table. What the City of Lancaster would bring is a commitment to be a customer, to test it out, both to pay for a reduced price, hopefully, for the service and test it out as a pilot. What the company would bring is the willingness to provide the service, to work bugs out, and what the Sheriff's Department would bring initially is the willingness to use it operationally in terms of resources and such. Once it's then proven in field operations and you work the kinks out, then you could go to the next step, which is a large-scale deployment of it. But something like this, you start out with, let's make sure it works.
So this would definitely help us lower the crime rate with Part 1 crimes?
I believe it would, because, yes.
Well, why would anyone do a crime knowing that's up there?
Well, Axel could probably answer why people do crimes in the first. I don't understand it.
Well, bad guys have a very optimistic attitude about their activities a lot of times. Why do they run from us when we have helicopters up there and you know, numerous patrol cars chasing them? It's I guess it's just in their nature. But I do think, you know, again, I don't think this is like a panacea. I don't think this is the perfect answer to every crime, but I think it has every appearance of being an excellent tool to help us move forward with bringing that Part 1 crime down.
Just to answer your question, why criminals do something, I saw an amazing story on the news today where 3 people robbed 2 women and ran away. The woman walked out, and the guy was outside, and he asked her out for a date. Same guy that robbed her. So who knows why they do what they do.
Mark,
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go on.
excuse me, Greg. Mark, are there any other large municipalities or departments anywhere in the United States using this technology right now?
Not municipalities, to our knowledge. There are some
Governmental agencies or
federal agencies, absolutely, that we know of. There are some cities that are very aerial surveillance is a big issue with those cities. So there's some that are more camera focused than others, if you will.
I think the possibilities are actually endless. I mean, you know, one of the biggest concerns as a law enforcement administrator that Axel's confronted with every day is, you know, responding to the scenes of a crime ongoing, crime in progress, or a crime that's just been committed, trying to get response times to get there as quickly as you can, which poses problems because, you know, you're worried about officer safety, you're worried about safety of the citizens. And, you know, this just seems like an incredible opportunity to get a law enforcement presence there quickly, to start gathering information that would be, you know, critical to either apprehending the suspect or solving the crime. And I also see it as an opportunity, too, to maybe mitigate some of the problems that result as a result of people, you know, fleeing the scene. So pursuits gets, you know, started. This provides an opportunity to maintain, you know, a vehicle. Most crimes are committed by suspects who use vehicles as a means of transporting themselves from one place to the next. So I think the possibilities are endless. So
We need to make sure
the only thing I've heard some, and I think we ought to address it and have a little bit of a discussion about it, and maybe this isn't the forum, but at least maybe we can begin thinking about it. There will always be those, and they will be, you know, they will express their opinions about this is an opportunity for the government to, you know, initiate Big Brother procedures against everybody here. They'll be watching everybody, doing everything, and we get the invasions of privacy issues and those kinds of things. And so, eye in the sky, it kind of would lead you to believe that they're watching everything all the time, and I think maybe we ought to have a discussion about possibly coming up with another name that would be more, because it is a law enforcement tool. It is an extension. You have a deputy, running the camera. It is a law enforcement, process. So I don't know, maybe the name itself, we frame things and then people begin to, begin to look for those kinds of things that are in the name. And, frankly, I get pretty tired of hearing people complaining about things like, well, this is just the sheriff's department's opportunity to, to be looking down into people's backyards when they're involved in activities that are perfectly legal. That has never been the issue, and it's not the issue now. And, I sometimes begin to wonder about people that look for reasons not to solve problems as it relates to crime. I remember for years, and right up until we started with the Antelope Valley War on Gangs and Crime, 3,500 people, I'll never forget that day, crowded into the Lancaster Baptist Church and talked about crime being the #1 issue confronting the city of Lancaster. So anybody that's not really on the track to reducing crime, must benefit from it, from crime. So I think I'd hate to see something like this get sidetracked because of a name. And I'm not saying it's a bad name, but I just want to generate a discussion about that.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely good thought, and I also think that, and although we certainly haven't sat down and started to discuss this yet, and I think it's probably going to end up clear up with the Sheriff's Department probably at the Executive Planning Council level. When you initiate a program like this, you have got to create policies that protect constitutional rights, and you've got to create policies that enable the Sheriff's Department to do what it needs to do with the system to prevent crime, and yet create as little invasion of privacy as possible. So I think it's a subject that's going to be under discussion as we develop this program, and certainly the Sheriff's Department is going to develop some strong policy in this area.
Any other comments?
Just a question. Will this do anything different than a helicopter, other than its capabilities?
I think it probably will. Helicopters are used to address, in almost all circumstances, specific problems. It's not that they don't run across things once in a while and run across, say, a robbery in progress or see some gang activity or something like that and notify patrol units about it so it can get taken care of. But they mostly address specific problems. They're busy enough that they're always answering a patrol unit's request for their assistance. I think with this program, we're going to have more possibilities of actually monitoring the city's area and supplementing patrol. In other words, it will actually be making some observations of suspicious or criminal activity. So, I think it's going to be a step further than just what Aero currently provides.
Well, the fixed wing will stay up in the air longer without refueling and substantially less expensive to operate, less downtime.
Absolutely. Less downtime, less expensive. And I think, too, the camera possibilities are far beyond anything that Sheriff's Department currently has. So the observations that one of our helicopters can make really are not going to be anywhere near the accuracy that this particular camera type system will make. We're going to be able to get a much better look at what suspects look like. It's probably going to get there a lot more quickly than a standard Aero Bureau unit will, because from miles away, this type of technology can focus into a certain location very, very quickly, and that helps us tactically. It may not help us get there any more quickly, but it certainly helps us be able to formulate plans to react to whatever the crime is, because we can see exactly what's going on there. We'll know a lot about, the direction the suspects are escaping or what they're currently involved with. Are they armed? Even down to the point where, to a certain extent, we'll get a pretty good description on them. So I think it provides, technologically, a whole lot of help. It's a real step forward.
What I'd like, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just had a comment on the name. Again, I think what Chairman Augusta said, the name of this program has a lot to do with how the public perceives the program. And Eye in the Sky, I believe from reading the letters to the editors and things, kind of connote that, we're going to have an eye in the sky looking at everybody. And that has never been the intent, I believe, of this program. It's to provide the backup and the patrol services that a deputy does, but on a much broader scale. So I would suggest the commission consider naming the program something than Eye in the Sky with the city staff's help. Some names that have been floated are like a deputy backup or deputy arrow, or something to do with what actually this plane's going to be doing, providing patrol and backup services to the deputies on the ground. So if the commission would consider something like that. Also, I think City Manager Bozigian has requested that at least one or two of the commission members serve on a committee with the Sheriff's Department. So if you guys would consider who the best people on your commission to do that would be something we could do today to start the process. Thank you.
Just so you know, timeline, that might help you decide. It's my intent to either have some kind of private funding source commitment and or all options exhausted by the end of this year, because I think the first thing that needs to happen is it needs to be that it's real and it's going to be funded. So we're working that aggressively. I think the commission's role would be then over that same period and entering into next year, 2010, working with the Sheriff's Department to provide the community support, wherever it needs to make that happen. And what Axel said is exactly true. This is, while it sounds easy to us laymen, Chairman Augusta accepted from that, it is very difficult to put a program into operational because you have to think of every single possibility, and you have several thousand deputies that all need to know how to react to it and what to use it for. And so it is not an easy task to do. The heavy work is on the Sheriff's Department on how to make it work and use it. So that does take some time to do. They're working it. So it's a 6 to 9 month commitment from the Commission.
Vice Chairman Christ has expressed an interest. I would be willing to donate time to. I think this is an important project.
You can take an action on that if you need it, or
We
you
need
can
a
do by,
motion?
or you can do by consensus.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or if you want a motion, I'll be more than happy to move that.
Just go ahead and make it.
Okay. I move that committee comprised of Chairman Augusta and Vice Chairman Christ work with the city and the Sheriff's Department regarding this currently referred to as Eye in the Sky program or possibility.
Second that.
And you'll be able. He seconded that motion. So, are you? You'll be able to provide the some kind of
Yeah, yes, at this point, I'm in charge of the project, and we'll transition it to some other staff at a future time when it gets going.
Need to vote. We need to vote.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Will we be working with the city of Palmdale with this?
I think at this point, the answer is yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it's regional, but quite honestly, we've been pushing it, and it's more important to get it going. We are the research and development station, so it needs to go somewhere first. This is where it's going to go. But no, we should work with all contract cities, but again, you have to get it done right, and the work now is to get it so it's working. Once it's working, you'll have 100 cities that want to do it. I think it's in our best interest eventually to make it regionally because it'll be less expensive. And we're one region. You know, as Axel's fond of telling me, you know, criminals don't know where Avenue M is. They just know where opportunities and targets are.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one speaker card. Call upon for new business item number 2. Actually, we have 2. Call upon Mr. David Eber.
Morning, Commissioners, Captain, Mr. Paris, City Manager, Mr. DeRico, staff. After listening to you gentlemen speak, I really appreciate all the input, especially with Chairman Augusta. His point of view, Captain Anderson was very much on point with the constitutional issue in this matter. This is something I've discussed without a doubt. Let me back up a little bit. I'm one of the biggest advocates of fighting crime in this valley for a long time. I've spoke before the council several times about helping the Sheriff's Department getting all the tools they need in order to make this a safer place to live, which is my number one priority. It is your gentlemen. The Fourth Amendment, reasonable expectation to privacy, is going to be an issue in this case. There's proactive and there's reactive, which needs to be probably looked into in great detail here, because I have no problem with there's a crime in progress, getting 10 helicopters or 3 airplanes or whatever it takes, or 20 units. I'm glad to see the great response. But with respect to something that's, as we well know with this day and time, with the Big Brother and all our rights being taken from us, I think it's very, with the health issue on the board and the way things are going in this country, I'm going to stand up here because I am a big supporter of the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and all the amendments. And I believe that we need to very carefully move in this direction with respect to, if the program passes the scrutiny of the Constitution, then I'm all for it. Proactive, is not going to be a good way to approach this. Changing the name, and no matter what you name it, we're not here to hoodwink the public. I like the transparency that this commission has always shown. It very much makes me proud to stand before it and live in this town again. And the transparency, if we're going to move into the future with innovative ideas, then we need to be upfront and above board and not try to hide what we're doing. If, in fact, the direction that you gentlemen take after researching this, if we dot all our I's and cross all our T's and it passes constitutional scrutiny, then I'm all for it. Like I said, I'm all for what's in the best interest of fighting crime in this community, and I've always supported that, and I will continue to do that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, call upon David Paul.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. I'm very excited today to be able to speak on this topic. How about a name called the Human Accountability Project? That's something that I have put forward for a while, and I am very relieved to see a program like this come forward, because I've been accused in this program of reaching too far and stepping on people's rights, and I believe the objections to a program like this, which I see the efficacy of, will raise more questions in regard to that. Gentlemen, we have the technology to shut off fleeing cars from a satellite. That's what this program is about. When I put this up years ago, and Dr. Vieira, I have a copy of this for you, because part of this component is a school-based driver's educational program where we help calculate the rate of traffic enforcement success. Now, I watched a program just the other day, and sometimes, I sit there and it just makes me feel good to see the truth come out. This program is called The Truth About Traffic, and it talks about traffic patterns and all the things I've tried to make the point of through all these years. And it is not, when I get up here for the public comments, I'm going to talk about addiction and all the other things that I wanted to finished talking about. But it's all built into this program. We have the technology right now. What I wanted to do was go out and get somebody like IBM, who's now doing this traffic flow technology stuff. This is where the future is. India, China, they all need this technology. I wanted us to have the ability as a technology center here to help develop these programs. Part of it is the human issue, where we have these kids, pre-driver's ed kids, go out with a check sheet. They learn statistical analysis and project management, and they go out and they figure out how many times their parents violate the laws going to Walmart on a check sheet. This is not to turn their parents in. This is simply to get data. This is to show that 1 out of every 40, 50, 100, 200 traffic violations is actually caught. The purpose for the traffic, and this is one of the interesting things that came out of this Truth About Traffic, the best way to control traffic is to leave it alone, to leave the human mind to actually figure out how to traverse an intersection, because once you take once it becomes all automatic with the lights and everything, people stop paying attention. The point is to get them to pay attention. The point is for the kids to understand what the laws are, why they are valuable ahead of time, and what our rate of traffic enforcement success is, and how much that costs us as a society, because there's a lot more than accidents and all that. There's this disrespect for the law. We are put in a position where the cops are the bad guys chasing people in traffic. And this is one of the things I want to get out there, because if we had satellite enforcement that was universal, it would apply to everybody. And that's going to be the thing that's going to get us the public support for this. So I'll talk more about this later. Thank you.
Thank you. This time we'll move to our commission reports. We'll begin with commission report number 1, crime statistics report. Call upon Jim Cobalt and Mark Bozigian.
I'm going to spend a minute or two with the permission of the commission to talk about how we use the data, because I think that's important. One of the things we started early on with the commission is everyone adding value, and the commission's added tremendous value. Your value hasn't been in the obvious, the easiest thing for you to do would have said, this is where the burglars are, go fix the burglaries. But the value the commission's added is with your organizations, the hospital, better than ever. We're getting deputies out, the high school district, the cooperation, the business community. We have, and with the CHP and with the faith-based community. Staff's value to the Sheriff's Department, again, is not to tell the Sheriff's Department what to do, but to set the expected outcomes. How we use this data, and that's sort of an introduction to this, how we use this data is we provide it to the Sheriff's Department and provide what our expected outcomes are. Our overall outcome that we expect out of, for the community, all of us, is a crime rate first below 300 Part 1 crimes per 10,000. And we're on our way to getting there. It's not just the Sheriff's Department. Code enforcement plays a huge role in that. The faith-based community plays a huge role. The schools, the medical, everyone plays a huge role in that. But, and this is, I'll take the hit for this a little bit, is as we've had this crime data, I probably haven't pushed it enough on how it should be used. So I really appreciate Jim Cobalt, Kelvin Tanatongo, and Axel. We all sat down and came up with really the best way to use the data that we have, and it's in twofold ways. With our city staff, we show it at a higher level. We go over it once a month as a group, but then as individuals, they have access to it constantly, and it helps them in their operations. It helps a Liz Brubaker see where some hot spots are, marry that with what's happening with code enforcement, and then direct her troops to fix that. What we do at the Sheriff's Department is we meet every couple of weeks with Axel, and we're meeting again next week, Axel and his lieutenants, to go over the data in detail, to look at issues, to look at outcomes, and then Axel and his group will come up with the plan, which is, okay, we want to see burglaries are being heavy on the west side, what are we going to do? And they'll come back with that plan. But the most important thing, and I think I compliment Axel on the most, is it doesn't work if he doesn't believe it. And his troops won't listen to him if he doesn't believe it. So he's then uses that to talk to his troops in his monthly crime trends meeting to get their input in a forum. He's going to in a forum where they'll throw out ideas and they'll come up with the suggestions, and they will then create that plan. So when you look at data like this, it's not a one-shot, this is it. What you see here, and as you've all been trained on the system, you can go in and see greater details. But that's how it works, and that's everyone adding value, but then operationalizing it. And so that's the path we're going on with this, and I just thought it might be interesting to you to understand how we use this in operations. It's on the city side and on the sheriff's side, too. With that, I'd like to ask Jim to go over this. If you have any questions for me now or later, or Jim, we'd be happy to answer those.
Can we be included, a representative be included in those weekly meetings?
I would like to talk to Axel and do offline. I don't have the answer is yes, but I think that there are some things that we would want to talk about first. Okay. But I'd prefer to talk about that offline. I don't have an objection at all.
If I can just add something to that, too. One of the things that I think is really, really important in these meetings is that when we sit down and we discuss strategies for addressing hot spots, problems with burglaries, robberies, whatever it may be, they can become very, very earthy discussions, and not everybody's going to agree. And when we bring somebody into those types of strategic type meetings, we need to bring in, there needs to be an element of real trust and comfort there. And that can certainly be established. But I would ask that we take a little time, that we have some time to kind of smooth the process out, get it a little bit better established as to how we're going to use it and what we're going to do in these meetings. And then I think it'd be a wonderful idea to have one of the commission come in.
And that's what I wanted to say, and I should have probably said it. I think it needs to get up, and it needs to be a working group where you're adding someone to instead of the formation period. It's still in the forming period in the Sheriff's Department. We need to get it to a point where we can add people to it.
Thanks, Mark and Axel. This period looks at the period since our last meeting up until midnight Saturday night, this past Saturday night. So we're looking at August 9th through September 5th. You have maps in front of you that we produced to show you the just a kind of a situational awareness of where things are at, and we'll look at that a little bit closer in just a second up here on the screen. This is our monthly production of violent crime and property crime information. One of the things that, again, I would remind the Commission on is these are not final UCR numbers. These are raw numbers. The Sheriff's Department goes back and looks at the reports, make sure they're classified properly and everything else. So the numbers that we're looking at right now are raw numbers. They're not final numbers. We can see in week 33, which was August 9th to the 15th, we had 80 Part 1 crimes. In week 34, August 16th to August 22nd, we had 89 Part 1 crimes. Week 35, which was August 23rd to August 29th, we again had 89 crimes. And there was something interesting with the data this week. We had 71 crimes for the most recent week, but we had the highest number of reports. So I suspect something got dropped out there in my calculations, so I'm going to go back and look at that for this particular week. The number of unique report numbers, the Sheriff's Department takes a report number for virtually everything that they do in the field, with the exception of simply stopping somebody and writing a traffic citation. So this represents a estimated or a number that their data systems puts out weekly for the area that comprises the city borders of Lancaster for 2008, and they had for week 33 614 report numbers. Week 34, 608 reports taken. Week 35, 605 reports taken, and then, as I stated, week 36, they had 658 reports taken. This is pretty. This This range is getting to be a fairly established range. That's basically the numbers that we keep finding week to week. Somewhere in the or high 500s to the high 600s is a pretty typical week for the city of Lancaster. Now, this looks at the 4 weeks, the same 4 weeks, and what we do in this, which is pretty typical at a CompStat meeting, is we look at the most active reporting districts. Now, for strategic analysis and tactical analysis, I generally take this down to a smaller area, which is considered, or which are U.S. Census block groups. But for reporting purposes here, so that we're consistent with the Sheriff's Department, we stick with the reporting districts. One of the things that we can see in the weeks up here are that if we go back just for a moment and take a look at the report that I gave to you last month, one of the things that I said was that reporting districts 1121, 1135, and 1137 were prevalent during each one of those reporting periods. We see those three reporting districts in 3 of the 4 reporting weeks for each one of those reporting districts. We also see the addition of 2 other reporting districts in our weekly top 3. That's reporting districts 1126 and 1127, and I'll point those out to you on the map in just a second. Before we get to that, though, it's important for us to kind of look at the Part 1 crimes and see what we're doing with regard to the Part 1 crimes. So I'd like to run through with you real quickly our 52-week look back, and bear in mind as we look at these charts, we are in week 52 all the time. So we're looking back 52 weeks into last year to see how we charted out over the course of the year. Now, one of the areas that we've made really nice improvements are the violent crime categories. We're seeing a lot of positive activity, particularly with what the Sheriff's Department is doing with gangs and things like that. We can see our homicide rate. Now, one of the things that I would point out as you look at this graph, again, we are always in week 52 over here. You only see 51. Week 52 drops off when you condense it down so we can have a page-sized view of it. But you can see over here, this would be week 52. This is our baseline. This blue line right here is our baseline for the city, which we average, going back to 1997, about 0.22 homicides per week. This is our trend line here, and you can see our trend line has actually gone down below 0. So we're doing good. We're doing very good with that. As we take a look at forcible rape, we have a little different story with that. Our baseline is right about 1 per week with forcible rape. We're seeing a little bit of an uptick in that, and but again, it's not a strong uptick, but it's enough that it probably should be on our radar screens to see what's going on, or at least find out what's going on inside those crimes. Robbery is the next Part 1 crime that we look at, and as we're in week 52 over here, we can see last week we were a little ways above, a couple of crimes above our baseline or our average going back to 1997. As we take a look at the frequency rate against our baseline, we can see that our trend line right here, the black line, is trending up just slightly. Probably enough for us to kind of take a look at that and see what's going on. But overall, it's more flat than it is really trending up. Now here's where we're making some good progress, folks. This is our aggravated assaults, and you can clearly see the trend line there. The trend line is going down, and you can see our frequencies basically for about the last 15 or 16 weeks has been below our baseline. So that's a really good sign for us. And again, that's reflective of what's going on with some of the gang activity or the gang countermeasures that the Sheriff's Department's been putting forward. We take a look at burglary. Now this graph right here merges residential burglary together and non-residential burglary. And the reason why I do that is because that's the way it's reported to UCR. In the Uniform Crime Report, we don't distinguish non-res versus residential burglary. So that's the way that we tend to look at it right here. I'll show you some interesting things when we look at those those individual reporting districts in just a second. We can see, again, a couple of weeks ago we were significantly above the trend line or the baseline, but we tend to be kind of flat in our baseline, and that means we're sticking pretty close to average. We're not really trending way up, and we're not really trending way down. We have some successes, and then we have some weeks that aren't quite so successful, and that's what these numbers are kind of reflective of right here with regard to burglary. Larceny, this is probably the single biggest area for us over the course of the last year where we've made some really significant progress. You can look up there, and with the exception of about 1 week, we've been below our baseline every week since or of the last 52 weeks. So this is really encouraging. These are encouraging signs. The one thing, again, as I say that, if you take a look at the trend line down there, right across here, it is something for us to kind of be aware of because we're starting to get a little bit closer up here to the baseline, and we want to make sure that we don't go over that baseline. We want to, again, if we're going to show results in our Part 1 crimes, we must stay below the baseline on average. Auto theft, another area of very good progress over the last year. You can see with the exception of a couple of weeks, we've been below our baseline pretty much all across the spectrum. And you can see the only area of concern, again, is if you look at the trend line has gone from a downward trend where it was back towards the beginning of the year to a trend of going back up again. Arson, with the exception of the past week, arson again is doing very well. We've got a very solid downward trend with regard to that. Now, as we take a look at the maps, .1121, which is H to I, 20th West over to Sierra Highway, is an area that is one of those areas that was prevalent in my report to you last month and is prevalent again this month. And as you take a look at the crimes that are on there, you can see as we move across here, there is some residential burglary, there is some non-residential burglary along the main streets, and a few auto thefts, but as you take a look at it, no clear pattern, just consistency. In moving over to 1135 and 1137, the shape of 1135 kind of follows a census tract that the U.S. Census Bureau set up for us. So it's probably not ideal in us looking at, we probably wouldn't set it up that way today, but it is what it is. As we take a look at it, you can see along Avenue I, a few auto thefts, some larceny activity, but again, what's going on, where it's going on, and everything else, consistency, but not real clear patterns. Now, what's interesting is when you get down into 1137, here we begin to see a little bit more patternistic behavior, particularly between J and K, Challenger over to 20th East. You can see the prevalence of larcenies in this particular area, followed by some of the burglary activity up closer to J, and of course down along 20th Street West we have some robbery activity. Now, in going over to some of the new reporting districts that have popped up, one of the reporting districts that I talked about was 1126, and that runs essentially from K down to the South City limit, and from Tenth Street West over to 20th Street West. What we can see by looking at this, see if I can zoom back out here. Again, one of the things that we see is burglary activity, some of the non-residential burglary activity, residential burglary activity. Here's a robbery. Let's see, aggravated assault, and those kinds of things. Now, it's important to take a look at this and realize that some of these areas where these particular crimes are happening are also areas where we have a high density of population with regard to things like apartments and those kinds of things. And then we get into 1127. Which runs basically from 20th Street West see if we can zoom out here a little bit. Out to about 60th Street West, and then from I down to about K. Now, what we see in here is particularly around some of our higher density population areas over around 20th Street, the freeway, and over just south of Valley Central Way, we see a number of robberies over in that area, residential burglaries, and a little further out over between 40th and 50th Street, we see a little pattern of larceny activity out there. So essentially that's where we're at right now, and some of these are some of the things that we'll be talking about with the Sheriff's Department in some of these strategy meetings to figure out what's going on and where and what kind of resources need to be devoted towards it. And I would open it up to any questions you'd have.
Do we have anything that shows the time and the weather?
Time, not yet, no. One of the things that we're going to be working on, we're in the process of putting some systems in place. One system that's next in line for me when I get a couple of databases set up. One of the things that we're going to be doing is putting this crime data into into a system where we can better access it and process it in a more timely manner. Then we'll be taking the export from that, and we will be putting it into a program that's made by SPSS out of Chicago. For those of you who did any work with software at the university level, you probably at one point or another used the SPSS statistical package. This is more of an applied package that you can take a bunch of data and put it in it, and it will look through and comb through to find patterns. And one of the data sources that we intend to include in that tool is weather data, along with data that corresponds with when school is in and when school is out, and some of the other activities that we have going on in the Antelope Valley.
So we'll be able to look at it and know when the fair's on. We'll be able to look at it and know when Easter vacation is and the Christmas holidays, that kind of stuff.
What it would do is it would tell us if there were any patterns in the criminal activity around that time that were identifiable, and then we could implement them. The other thing is Alexandria, Virginia was very successful with this, particularly with violent crimes, and they were able to pull themselves out of the top 10 violent crimes using this SPSS package. And but it's dependent on real-time data, and we're working with the Sheriff's Department as well to try to speed up the access to data, because Alexandria got it down to where they were running their data every 4 hours and then projecting out for the next 4 hours so they knew where to put their patrol cars. And that was pretty impressive.
Well, with that data as well, can you not get to a point where you can almost predict, based upon the themes or the trends that have come forward, based upon those factors that you unload, what may come out?
That's the whole purpose of this. One of the things that I used to tell my students in school was that we used to talk about CompStat in our management course, and one of the things that I used to tell them was CompStat is not the end-all to be-all. It's the next step in where we need to be. And the next step is just like you go home at night and you get a weather forecast. The weather forecast is developed based upon a statistical analysis of 100 years worth of data. And they say, if X happens, Y is going to happen next. And that's how you get your forecast. And that is essentially what we're working towards here, working with degrees of probability, and saying there's a 90% chance that we could have a robbery in a certain area during a certain time. We'd like to be able to get to that level if we can. Again, but that's pretty dependent on as not only the accuracy in your data, but also being able to get your data to where it's not 3 days old or 4 days old, but where you're looking at the number of hours it is old.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further comments? If there's no further comments, we'll move ahead. Thank you very much, Jim, by the way. Thank you for your ongoing efforts. We'll move now to public business from the floor, non-agendized items. And if I could have the recording secretary please read the admonition.
We request that any person who would like to address the Criminal Justice Commission on non-agendized matters to complete a speaker card. You will find speaker cards on the back table of the council chambers. Additionally, we respectfully request that you fill the cards out completely and print as clearly as possible so that if necessary, the commission or city staff will be able to contact you either by phone or by mail. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. When you approach the podium, please notice that there are 3 lights. When the green light comes on, you begin. When the yellow light comes on, you will have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light will come on when your 3 minutes are up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. Following this procedure will allow for a smooth and timely process for the commission meeting, and we appreciate your cooperation. State law prohibits the Criminal Justice Commission from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter will be referred to staff. Thank you.
First call upon Michelle Egberts-Green. Ms. Green, before you start, I just want to reemphasize the fact that we have a lot of information that's been presented to us, a folder that you've
Yes.
apparently given to staff. We're not able to discuss any of the issues in your folder today, and we're going to limit you to 3 minutes, okay?
It's okay.
Thank you. So if you could, in that period of time, if you could just give us an overview of what it is that you're proposing and what it is you're looking for. And thank you very much.
Good morning, Commission Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commission members, key city members, and Captain Axel Anderson. We finally meet, gentlemen, as I was referred to your commission by R.X. Paris, our mayor. And you all received an email from Jason Cottle. I am Michelle Egbert-Screen, a resident of Lancaster, a business owner, a mother of 2, and a state parolee, and a former Cal firefighter out of Camp 13, Malibu. Gentlemen, I too, like all of you, am in mourning of 2 fine firefighters who made the ultimate human investment of giving their lives to protect their crew and correctional officers from perishing in the station fire. Captain Ted Hall, known to us as Soup 16, and Fire Specialist Arnaldo Arnie Quinones, known as Q. They both gave our men a second chance at life's opportunities, as you too should, by implementing this effective community partnership. Not only for the parolees, but now in honor of Captain Ted Hall and Fire Specialist Arnaldo Arnie Quinones, one of our own, from Station 129, Lancaster, Palmdale. When we ask law enforcement to be the sole solution to a social problem, it's never going to play out well. Unsuccessful though it has proved to be by our present prison overcrowding for nearly 2 decades, the lock 'em up and throw away the key model was heavily favored by most law enforcement in Los Angeles. Now, with the very upper levels of LA policing, matters have transformed considerably, except in Lancaster. Chief William Bratton of LAPD and LA County Sheriff Lee Baca are both smart and enlightened men who, along with their command staff, state publicly that we cannot arrest our way out of the problem and that a 3-pronged approach is necessary: prevention, intervention, and in addition, suppression. Definitely not the recent aggressive suppression approach the Lancaster Sheriff Station is taking in their newly launched parolee fugitive apprehension detail. So what is the alternative? I want this city to apply for the city grants we are applicable for as an all-American city, to provide the financial resources needed for the Reducing Recidivism Strategies Initiative program I have presented. Some things are obvious. First, local residents themselves would have to take the lead. Second, if public support is not going to do the job, some other source of funding would have to be found. Third, anyone who expects a quick fix is naive. The only way forward is to think long-term, gentlemen, and to start organizing now to solve immediate problems, step by step, in a manner that also lays foundations for an approach that might ultimately build to a new answer. But this requires a new community-based forum, one that combines the community-serving mission of initiative with wealth building and ownership of economic enterprise. Even though I cannot be a member of this commission because of my felony conviction, I have proven to be effective after a lengthy discussion with Marvin Christ. And recognizing the vital importance of adding another key member to the commission, I took the initiative from him, to find the parole agent you've been looking for, and she would be Risa Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion from the members about any questions that need to be asked or answered? No. You know what I would like to do is I haven't had a chance to review any of this package that I just received today, and I don't think the other commission members have either. But I would like staff to look at this package and evaluate that and develop some recommendations for the commission.
We'd be happy to, and I believe Jason's already met once with the speaker, and we'll evaluate that.
Okay.
Chairman?
Yes.
May I answer a couple questions that you asked earlier about the amount of inmates that we're going to get?
About the what?
the amount of inmates that we're going to get. Can I answer a question?
Sure.
That you asked? Okay. Because I come with facts, okay? And very resourceful from Sacramento and from our parole agency here. To answer the question that was directed to Kempter Anderson, the federal judges are giving the Assembly reasonable amount of time. Our state legislature passed it 2119 in the majority for the inmate release. It's imminent because of the 3-judge panel. But the Assembly, because they don't have the majority, is kind of stuck. So they gave them the amount of time to make that decision before they do. Now, of the 64,300 inmates over the next 2 fiscal years that we're going to get out, these parolees, they are considering the 19,000 illegal immigrants that we have in our prison system to be booted out of the country, to be part of that release. Now, of the 64,300 parolees coming out in the next 2 fiscal years, Antelope Valley will approximately see 356 of those individuals. Now, LA County is known as Region 3. There are 4 regions in the state of parole. We have the largest at 40% of parolees coming out. So that is to answer that question that was directed.
Thank you.
Michelle, what you're asking is basically for us to have a work opportunity tax credit program for parolees?
Not just parolees, Mr. Christ.
I understand the other applications.
There are other...
We deal with the criminal element.
Right. However, we are targeting these parolees. We can form a partnership here, and this is very unique. Okay? Believe me. And it can be a vital asset in this community if we work together. These guys are coming out with skills now. As of May 2nd, 2007 is when CDC became CDCR. That's California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. The only program that was in there from 1979 was the firefighting crews. That was it. There was no vocation, no substance abuse programs, nothing. So we need to make that bridge and continue the CDCR reform and rehabilitation by melting those bars and turning them into bridges. We have the money. I don't want your money. I don't want the city's money. I want the grant money.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, call upon Mr. David Paul.
Chairman and Commissioners, I just feel like I'm in the right place today. Mr. Christ, you asked me the last time, how can we reduce Part 1 crimes? That's what my Human Accountability Project is about. This young lady speaking, she has some of the same concerns. My point is, what if there was one fair and consistent thing in life that people could count on? That makes all the difference in the world. And getting law enforcement out of the business of busting people when we have satellites that could make people responsible for their driving behavior just seems like the sensible future way to go. You know, I do believe that most people are redeemable, but we all have problems. A friend and mentor of mine, John Bradshaw, wrote a book in 1988 that really helped me a lot called The Family, and it's the dynamics of family systems, and we see this play out in society. And he says that addiction is a pathological relationship to a mood-altering event or substance that has life-threatening consequences. So you can be addicted to anything. Is marijuana a drug? Certainly it is. Is righteousness a drug? Certainly it is. Anything can be a drug that alters your mood. So that's why we're here. We're here trying to make this world a better place. And that alters our mood. That makes us feel better. That makes us feel like we're contributing. That is what everybody needs. There's a port in Rotterdam, I talk about this, where the seawall just closes automatically. No one can control this. That's the type of thing I have in mind for this program that will control traffic. This is what Stephen Covey has in his 8th Habit book. These are 6 stages of cooperation. The first is the lowest, rebel or quit. That's what people do. Then there's malicious obedience, willing compliance, cheerful cooperation, heartfelt commitment, creative excitement. That is where we want to be. We want people in the process and invested. And you see the motorcycle guys with the 1%er patches. It's true, 1 to 4% of the human population are genetic sociopaths. They're never going to care about anybody. But the rest of us are needing to be part of something greater, and that's why we want to be inclusive. That's why we want to show what it costs to not enforce traffic. That's why the immediate impact of a kid on their parent and how he drives has an immediate impact. No one can disagree that we should want to be better people, and that's why the Human Accountability Project and the statistical gathering here, I see the genesis of all these things coming together to make this plan doable. So I'm going to leave you a copy, sir, and I apologize for not printing any more, but I've had this out for a while. I'll get more to you if you'd like. This is a broad-based program to bring people together and just create a sense of community that we all share and spread that out to others. It has it all, and this is the way to do it. So thank you again.
Next call upon Mr. David Aber.
Good morning again, Commission, staff, and Captain, everybody over here to the left. Just so there's no misunderstandings, I would be willing to donate my time also to the Commission in any way that I can with respect to the Eye in the Sky plan that the Vice Chair and the Chairman are both going to be looking into further. I'm without a doubt willing to support anything that will reduce the crime in the Antelope Valley as long as it's within the guidelines of the Constitution. It's not that tough. And I would be more than willing to give my time, to you gentlemen and to the Commission in any way that I could help. I'd like to take this time to commend the Commission for their time and their efforts. I believe this Commission is moving in the right direction, that it's an asset to both the Sheriff's Department and the community, without a doubt. I really appreciate the diverse members of the Commission. I think there's a lot of thinking power, a lot of different opinions, and a very thorough thought that goes into the issues that have come before this Commission, and I appreciate that as a citizen of this community. With respect to the young lady that spoke earlier, if there's anything that the Commission can do with respect to addressing the parolees and the people that, without a doubt, are going to be released into our community, if there's a way that we can partner up and assist these people. Some people make mistakes, and maybe with a little help into the right direction, since they're going to be released in our community, we can explore the possibilities of helping these people get back on track and, giving them a chance to go forward and become productive in life. Obviously, if they don't follow the guidelines and the rules of their conditions of parole or probation, they'll find themselves right back in the same position that they had just come from. But as the Crime Commission, I believe that the efforts is to reduce the crime in the in our community, and that with respect to that this would be something worth looking into and exploring further, as the Eye in the Sky would be. And I would be more than willing to donate my time and efforts to anything I could do to help the Commission and the community. I'd like to end with a moment of silence to honor Mr. Hall and Mr. Kionis, the firefighters that we lost here recently, to their families, and the dedication and service to the community in the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public business from the floor on non-agendized items. Before we adjourn, I would like to just talk just briefly about about the commission, about how we came into existence, what we have done, and where we're going as a commission. The commission has been in existence now for almost a year. First meeting was held in, I think, October 15th of 2008, so we're nearing our year existence as a commission. It was established, obviously, when Mayor Rex Parris established the commission with the intent to reduce crime, Part 1 crimes in Lancaster. That's his vision. As a result of his leadership, the commission came into existence. And so I want to talk just a little bit about what we've done as a commission. And certainly, when I look at it's a privilege to serve with such fine individuals, and the things they've accomplished in this last year are really pretty incredible. I look at Dr. Vieira. Dr. Vieira had worked very, very closely as a result of some issues relating to the high school and truancy and those kinds of issues. And a result of his leadership, there's just been a tremendous reduction in truancy. There have been new programs implemented, and he's done just an incredible job, addressing that goal. Commissioner Greer and Vice Chair Christ have been so involved in the community. Marv has been instrumental in developing and promoting the Buy Local campaign that involved all the auto dealers here in Lancaster. Dennis has worked so hard with his perspective in the real estate industry and business, and addressing the needs, concerns of homeowners and existing homeowners and new homeowners. Dr. Brown has done an incredible job at the hospital, implementing new policies and procedures that reduce the amount of time that deputies are in the hospital waiting to book suspects needing medical attention, thereby putting more deputies on the street. Commissioner Johnson's not here, but he's just we're so thankful for all that he's done in the community through his Neighborhood Impact Program. And he's briefed us numerous times on the community house in the Paiute neighborhood. They've painted homes. They provided free dental checkups for underprivileged kids. Just done an incredible job. And the Sheriff's Department, I think certainly we need to acknowledge and appreciate all that they've done. Sheriff Lee Baca committed to the city of Lancaster that reduction of crime was going to be a #1 goal for him. Certainly under the leadership of Axel Anderson, we've seen that come to fruition. We're reporting now a 25% reduction in crimes for the same period in 2008, and I think that's just a tremendous achievement on your part, Axel. Really appreciate that. So that's kind of what we've done. We came together as a group. Our focus was, our charge by the mayor was to reduce Part 1 crimes, but our action steps were to look at the entire criminal justice system, which we did. We had presentations from the California Department of Corrections, the CHP, the Sheriff's Department. We were honored to have the judges here. The juvenile justice system was examined. So we've examined all aspects of that. I think we've done a great job of doing that. So now where do we go? I think the commission, there is much more that the commission can do, and I think there is much more that the commission will do. But I also think that leadership of the commission really should be limited to 1 year. My goals when I came in as the chair of this new commission was to provide some leadership and organization and direction. I think I've done that. And now I believe that with our year very closely approaching, and by the time of our next meeting, our year will have come and gone. And I think that I would like to have a discussion about determining what the time that the length of time the chairmanship should be. I really personally believe it should be 1 year. And I'd also like to recommend that Vice Chair Marv Christ become the chair of the commission, and that the commission develop some dialogue about who the vice chair would be. And I certainly want to remain involved in the commission as a member, because I really am committed to the goals and objectives that Mayor Paris has established. So with that, I'd like to generate some discussion.
Well, I would just start off by saying it's been an honor working with such a dedicated, committed, independent group of individuals, and I look forward for the continuation of hopefully being able to do this, and I would fully support Mr. Chris stepping into the chairmanship in the upcoming year as well.
My comments are along the same line. It's been a pleasure to work with each and every one of the individuals on the commission, as well as the staff, the involvement with the Sheriff's Department. The material that's provided to us on any issue or any subject or any speaker has been terrific. It's certainly helped provide a better understanding of what's in front of us and what we have to work on. As far as the chairman's role or his time as chairman, certainly that should be a chairman's prerogative, and certainly Marvin's demonstrated an ability to lead and be a terrific team worker on this commission.
I don't have much to add to what's been said. It's been a great pleasure for me to be on this commission. No insult to Marvin, but Greg's done a fabulous job. If he wants to step down, that's fine, but if he's happy to keep doing it, I'm grateful that you do it. So however you guys want to do this is fine.
Do we need to run this on a motion, or?
Actually, I think to be safe, since it's not on the agenda, I think we just put it on the agenda next week.
Okay.
And vote on
Next time?
next month, unless you want to come back next week. Next month, we'll put it on.
Isn't it up to the mayor to decide who the chairman will be? Doesn't he appoint?
That's a good question, Vice Chair. I'm not sure how this ordinance was particularly written. I know in one of those commissions it is, and I know in the LPAC Foundation it is. So we will research that, and if that's the case, we'll make sure. My recollection, I believe, as this ordinance was written, is it was the, well, I'll go back and look. It's a good question. Whatever it is, we'll put it on the agenda, and if the mayor needs to do it, we'll put it on the city agenda first.
I think we would be remiss to change the chairman. He's done a great job. I think he's done a wonderful job doing what he does. But we take our leadership not only from the chairman but from the mayor, and the mayor should make that decision, in my opinion. That's
And Chairman Augusta, as the mayor's liaison to the commission, I will definitely have some discussions with the mayor and be prepared to give you his thoughts at the next meeting also. Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns?
Can I have one thing, sir? To
Yes.
your comment? I'd like to point out for the public and everyone, this is an unpaid commission as well, too. You do this for the community, and we appreciate that.
Okay. This meeting stands adjourned. The next regular meeting of the Criminal Justice Commission will be Wednesday, October 14th, 2009.